Welcome back. Now, Nigeria's economy is still in trouble. Inflation at 18.3%, and of course, the economy, as we've been told, contracting by 2.24% in the third quarter. And the fact is that as we speak today, we do not know when this economy is going to come out of recession, even though we've been told that by the first quarter of next year, we should begin to expect some kind of growth, as some people are projecting. As a matter of fact, even the World Bank is projecting a growth of somewhere around 2.25%, but that is incumbent on the fact that we're able to produce 2.2 million barrels of oil per day beginning from now, and unfortunately we're not doing that right now. Well, Nigeria's central bank's Monetary Policy Committee, after its latest meeting, which happened between Monday and Tuesday last week, agreed to keep the monetary policy rate at 14%, the cash reserve ratio at 22.5%, and of course the liquidity ratio at 30%, everything remaining the same. Now, analysts had projected that the committee was not likely to announce any policy changes at all, despite the economy contracting by 2.24% in the third quarter. Let's take a listen now to the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, reel out the decision after that all-important Monetary Policy Committee meeting. And by the way, that meeting was actually the last for the year.
Members stressed the need for a robust and more keenly coordinated macroeconomic policy framework that will restart output growth, stimulate aggregate demand, and rein in inflation expectations. Consequently, the MPC welcomes efforts at resuscitating planning, noting the progress made in developing the medium-term economic recovery plan. The MPC urged the government to urgently assess the extent of its indebtedness to domestic economic agents and develop a framework for securitizing the debts in order to settle its outstanding domestic contractual obligations, which cut across all sectors of the economy. These accumulated debts have slowed business activities of economic agents, most of whom are indebted to the banking system, thus compromising the integrity of the financial system. It also advised the bank to commit to greater surveillance and deployment of early warning signals in managing the banking system. Overall, members called for an enrichment of fiscal and other sector initiatives and interventions towards resolving the growth challenges in the economy in order to promptly revive confidence in the economy. Available data and forecasts of key economic variables indicate that the outlook for growth and inflation in the medium term continues to be challenging. Growth is expected to remain less robust given the absence of sufficient fiscal space, while the current tight stance of monetary policy and improved agricultural harvest are expected to contain further price increases and moderate price expectations as the trend has already revealed. Decisions. Committee assessed the relevant risks to the global and domestic economy and concluded that the risks to the economy remained highly elevated on two fronts, price and output. However, considering the importance of price stability and being mindful of the limitations of monetary policy in influencing output and employment under the conditions of stagflation, committee decided unanimously in favor of retaining the current stance of monetary policy, thus keeping MPR at 14% alongside all other policy parameters. In summary, all 10 MPC members voted to 1. Retain MPR at 14%, retain CRR at 22.5%, retain liquidity ratio at 30%, retain the asymmetric window at plus 200 and minus 500 basis points around the MPR.
Well, as the CBN governor announcing the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee last Tuesday. Now, the financial market also looked forward to the regulator's assessment on the impact of monetary tightening and the flexible forex policy on foreign inflows into the economy. Now, though there are rumors that the CBN is planning a new forex regulation The Apex Bank has now come out to deny plans to amend the Foreign Exchange Act of the country. The CBN says it remains committed to safeguarding the international value of the country's legal tender. It also added that the plans of a 20% fine for any holder and confiscation of funds in domiciliary accounts of individuals is just not true. Take a listen to the CBN governor again.
It is not untrue. It is not. There is nothing in our current foreign exchange regulations that says that people will be jailed or that their dollars will be confiscated. But I'm aware, because just today I was told the Nigerian Law Reform Commission is looking at reviewing the exchange regulations just like they normally will from time to time. The Law Reform Commission is an agency of government that has a responsibility for reviewing, like you said, Law Reform Commission, reviewing all laws in the country from time to time, depending on exigencies of time. We have not been contacted regarding whether or not some of the clauses that are involved, that are included in the review that is being conducted by the Law Reform Commission. But I'm saying here and categorically that if we are contacted or whenever it becomes an issue for discussion, we will advise against a clause that forbids people from keeping their dollars if they choose to, or a law that says that people should be jailed for keeping foreign currency.
Now, even before the CBN governor issued that statement, the Senate of this country has actually said it will not entertain such an idea at all, that if the proposal was brought to it, it would definitely kill it, that it's just not supportive of investment. Meanwhile, the issue of Forex is still a big problem for manufacturers in the country. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria recently said its members lost about 500 billion naira as a result of the flexible exchange rate. Well, not a good news at all for local manufacturers, but we know the Minister of Finance has now said the government will be turning its attention to the manufacturing sector. But joining me now to look at these issues is Dr. Segun Omishakin, who is an economist. Doctor, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let us start from the last issue the CBN governor talked about there. It's just... it's shocking that the Nigerian Law Review Commission would make such a proposal without consulting the CBN. And, you know, for such thing to come out, most people have said, look, even though the country hasn't implemented it, but it's reckless to even put it out because it has the potential of scaring off investors.
Yeah, well, you must also understand that in this period where the economy is not strong, and the financial sector also is sending some signals of instability, you always see different kind of predictions and people trying to look at what would be the move of the government or any authority for that matter. But I think it is clear from what the CBN governor already said that that's untrue. And at least they've not been consulted, even if it's true. And if they are consulted about this issue, you rightly tell them there's no way. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's an issue, and really, because even before it gets to the CBN, the Senate had already taken its stand and said this is not going to be entertained. So that's ridiculous if it's true. But we've heard from him that that's just a rumor.
Let's talk about you know, the decision of the MPC now to retain rates at their current level. A lot of people, even though had argued for some kind of changes, especially in terms of the benchmark, you know, lending rate now, that it should be reduced from 14% to maybe somewhere around 10, just to spur growth. But then quite a number of people too had predicted that we were not going to see this. And just days before the MPC meeting actually took place, the CBN governor was in Lagos, and that issue came up, and he specifically said he didn't expect it. That was before the meeting happened. And even though he said it was his opinion, but eventually that's what we saw after the MPC meeting. And quite instructive that, you know, all 10 members of the MPC unanimously agreed to retain rates.
Yeah. You see, we've been clamoring for reducing the rates when the whole signal of recession was about to show. But now, In my own opinion, even if the CBN reduces, if the committee reduce the rate, and then we don't have a clear stance from the fiscal side, it's going to be very, very dicey. It's going to be very, very complex, and I think that's why the CBN committee took the decision, the monetary committee took the decision to let the situation remain. And if you could deduce any meaningful pronunciation from the CBN governor, he was trying to lay a greater blame on the fiscal side, that we are like this, we can't really know where we are going because we are not seeing any serious signal from this side. If you've been getting the fiscal side very strongly, something would have happened. If you reduce it, well, that could have been meaningful. But if you reduce it now, it might be very dangerous because, for instance, the implementation of 2016 budget is not optimal. The 2017 is doing the process. So there are so many expectations from the side of the fiscal policy and fiscal authority. So the lesson that I think we can get from this is to say, enough of looking at the monetary side. What would they do?
Yeah, because it appears the focus is
always on them. So it's obvious now that let's leave them alone. They are trying. At least let's leave them alone and let's look at what is happening to revamping the economy, what is happening to government spending, what is happening to government policy, what is happening to investors coming in, what is happening to states owing salary, what is the structure of the Nigerian economy is looking like, and let's for this period.
And talking about spending, quite unfortunate that you know, the income of government keeps going down by the day, whether or not we like it. The last FAC meeting they held, we understand what was distributed was actually less, you know, over $1 billion naira less. So it continues to get really bad for Nigeria.
Yeah, and that is where the recession problem is hanging. It's not practically on this monetary side. The monetary side could play a role of revamping or trying to make things better, but where the problem is coming from is from that side. And you also look at some of the assumptions or some of the considerations that the CBN governor was talking about globally. You see the situation that the global growth is not, the expectation from the global economic growth is not that encouraging.
Yes, that's true.
And then the domestic challenges and the rest. So maintaining the rate also isn't all about whether they reduce or increase. It's all about maintaining the status quo. Let's wait. And that's had a lot of implication. It has a lot of implication to people to know that the CBN or the monetary side seems to be stable, and that the situation can continue, because in this period of recession, you need to be very careful how you move. And that was one of the reasons why people believe that it's not just only that the oil price fell that we found ourselves there. It's because of the way the government also introduced so many policy without being careful about it. So what the CBN is doing is to say, let's be careful. Let's just maintain the status quo. Now, we are still having issue with the oil price, and according to some recent forecasts, they said there is nothing that will likely bail that oil price out of that region. It's going to be 40 and max. It's going to be like 60 maximum, because the fundamentals are still strong, and the dimension is even changing. What determines fundamentally the price of oil is now leaving the arena of the demand, the consumption, the energy consumption globally. Is now even moving to the substitutes of crude oil, which is for now shale gas. So if American producers want to make sure that the price of oil falls down, they will increase their output.
And now you have a government in America that's willing to do just that.
Exactly. And you know what is even happening among the OPEC members? There is no agreement. Even if they agree to reduce output, you are not going to see a strong price increase. So that is the situation we are in now.
So how then do we deal with this kind of situation? I mean, some people have said perhaps we should begin to turn our attention towards taxation, but then there's also a problem with that. You can't turn yourself. If you tax what? Recession says there's no money, there is no business activity, so you want to further tax them, and then you are postponing the recession period. You are telling us that you will keep being in that situation. And by the way, while the recession lingers, but if you look at because most people most of the time look at how to know whether we are doing fine or not by comparing the year-on-year GDP performance. If you look at the year-on-year, you say yes, we are still in recession, we are not doing fine. But if you look at the
quarter on quarter, you see that we are performing better. In fact, Nigeria grew from last quarter to second quarter to third quarter by 9%. It means though we are in recession, but the economic activities are gathering momentum. In other words, we are trying to find our levels. And so that is one of the reasons why I believe that the CBN made that choice and is the best choice to make sure that let's see what happens to the economic activity, because it's not actually how we fail that matters, but how we are trying to gather ourselves. So practically, I don't see us getting out of recession this year, and I doubt whether if things continue, the policy position and display continues, I don't see us we are getting out of recession also in the first or second quarter of 2017.
I mean, you know, some bodies have said if we're able to sustain, for instance, 2.2 million barrels per day, we just might be able to spring into growth by 2017. But the big question is, how are we able to resolve the problem in the Niger Delta, for instance, so that we are able to, you know, ramp up our production to that level of 2.2 million barrels per day? But it's surely going to be very challenging. Very
challenging, because we've not seen any serious position from the side of government at addressing the situation. In fact, we've seen that the situation is getting worse. Here and there, you see the Niger Delta Avenger blowing up infrastructure. It's not just the oil you are losing; it's also the infrastructure you are going to replace. And so if you look at one of the recent attacks, we're told that we lost about 250 or 150 to 215 barrels per day, and that's very strong. And so if this continues and the price of oil is not going to send any signal of increasing, I don't want to believe our hope is going to be on
Then what do you think we should be doing at this very moment, to, you know, despite all these problems now? What do you think we should be doing at this moment so that things can change?
Yeah.
Even though, as you said, we're beginning to see those signs when you look at the quarter-on-quarter GDP growth rate and all of that.
Yeah, if you look at the sectoral analysis of this recent growth rate released by the economic activity released by MBS, you see that service seems to be the strongest also, even though service also is declining, but it seems to be the strongest contributor to our GDP. And then you have agriculture. Yeah. And then manufacturing is dead. It's out of it. So what the government can do is to make sure that we concentrate on those sectors that are growing. Look at why they grow. Look at some of the environments where they are, and then concentrate at boosting them to grow. There is nothing we can do sharply that will get us out. But what I'm concerned about is that how are we performing quarter on quarter? Are we moving to that right direction? If you see more activity growing up, then we are doing better. But again, I think the government is getting it right this time around. Maybe probably after so many times that people were clamoring, oh, government should have a national economic plan. We should know what we are doing. And recently, you see government trying to do that, involving the private sector, the academics, and different consulting group to look at what is our aim. And so government is trying to look at 2017 to 2020 and say what should be our focus. So if that policy, if that plan is then rolled into the 2017 budget drafting and allocation, and every of the government organ is trying to make sure that this thing succeeds, then we're going to be moving at a very higher rate, getting out of this recession. Because what you must understand also is that it's easy to fall, but it's very difficult to stand. And so the question of getting back out of recession isn't just all about looking at where what the growth rate is now. It's all about how are we moving. So if we can determine the next 2 or 3 quarters and we see the month-on-month growing, then we can predict and say at this rate at which we are going, so time or year we're going to be out. And when we are out, that doesn't really mean that then everything is good. In fact, as we're moving up now, everything is good. That is the meaning. But if we keep looking back at when we fell, we will think until we get to that 0 or 2.2 positive growth before we could see some positives. So I believe that what the CBN is doing is good. And I believe that what the government is doing is good now in trying to bring up everybody together and say, okay, let's look at what to do. If this is maintained, only that I can't say exactly when we'll get up, but at least something is happening good.
Well, economists hardly give you exact answers. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Dr. Mishaki, and thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you very much.
I will take a short break and we'll be right back. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.